Robin Miller in Toronto, a city that's already using 3 sprung structures like the one being proposed in Ottawa. In fact, in a memo to council, city staff said they're using this city as a proven example that structures like this one can be used to house vulnerable populations. So we came here to see how they're fitting into the community. Welcome to Dixon Hall. So how many people are in here today?
So at this very moment, we have upwards of 90 people. Yeah, I mean, it's all our home, right? It's a home, and that's kind of what we try to create.
A shelter in downtown Toronto near the shores of Lake Ontario. Praneeth De Silva is a supervisor here, a place that's become home for some of the city's most vulnerable. The chronically homeless, those struggling with addiction and mental illness, and newcomers to Canada.
People think that, thinking of a shelter or respite, that they're dangerous and they're a scary place to be with a lot of violence and that they're generally unsafe. And so really what I ask the general public is to tackle your own misconceptions about what you think poverty looks like.
The building is one of 3 in Toronto built by Canadian company Sprung Structures.
This building was a part of the Winter Action Plan in 2019 when they recognized that they needed emergency shelters that were different from traditional shelters, right? And there was some community consultation that took place, but because that these structures have such a small footprint and that they're able to kind of plug and play and take it off if they need to, it didn't have to go through the rigor of being a permanent structure.
The climate-controlled shelter has washroom and shower facilities. Light streams through from the ceiling.
How does it feel in here?
It feels like I'm in a regular building. It feels like I'm in a gymnasium or in a, yeah.
Like a hockey rink without the ice in.
Right.
Access to healthcare and social services are also available.
We have our doctor's office right there.
It also includes a patio and community garden.
We did it in little buckets. Over there, there's tomatoes, chilies, and I think mint.
Nice.
And we take some of the harvest and supplement our suppers.
Clients can also get 3 meals a day, but there's little privacy. People sleep on cots side by side. Have you heard concerns, I guess, in the past, like similar to the ones we're hearing in Ottawa about this, like, lack of dignified living in one of these structures? And how do you, if you have heard of that, how do you respond, I guess?
Yeah, I have heard humdrums about it, right? But I think the dignity comes from the operator, right? And how you treat the people that you work with. I think we at Dixon Hall, we're kind of known for working with the community.
Now, they're not exactly the same. The city here is using these as 24-hour respite centers for people experiencing homelessness. In Ottawa, we want to use ours to house asylum seekers. But they're both really trying to solve the same problem. Too many people with nowhere to live. So you live here?
Yes.
What's that like?
It's like you're camping.
What do you think of like the building itself? Because we're here from a city that's considering putting up these types of structures to help house asylum seekers. And there's been some concern, some pushback about the quality of life inside these structures.
Yes, I like it. I personally really like it. We're all nice to each other. We're a big family.
She's been here about 1.5 years and is known as the house artist. Her work brightens the walls.
I was really ill when I got here, and they helped me get to the doctor and get my medicine and put my life back together. I lost my home, my car, and everything I worked for my whole life. I got an apartment, and I'm moving out in probably a month.
Refugees are welcome here. Refugees are welcome here.
Helping people back on their feet. That's what Ottawa is proposing, a welcome center for asylum seekers only.
These people are already here. They want to work. They want to rebuild their lives, as we've all done as newcomers.
It will be about 3 times bigger than the shelter we toured and could look something like this, with common areas and private pods for those who stay there. The city is considering using the company Sprung Structures, but says the procurement process is still underway.
The whole thing we're trying to do is to create a completely different system than when you see in our shelter system, because the settlement needs are very different than someone who might be experiencing homelessness locally.
But as we've seen, not everyone is convinced. Some worry about the impact this could have on their neighborhood.
I'm part of this community of people trying to get our voice heard, because we are strongly against this process and this whole idea of installing so-called sprung shelters in our neighborhood. 2
of Toronto's sprung structures are located here in the Liberty Village neighborhood. And people who live and work here say, similar to Ottawa, there was some pushback when they first went up.
Because there was like an increase in thefts from what I overheard, that there were people that were like breaking into stores and taking things. I never saw that, but that was kind of what was on our Facebook group. But that hasn't really happened recently. Like, I think that mostly everyone is just living pretty harmoniously with them.
Everybody would prefer they didn't exist at all, I suppose, but if they're going to exist, you have to share the load. It's all part of your social responsibility.
Some longtime residents of this neighborhood had advice for Ottawa.
First of all, location is key. Then when they're bringing this in, how can the community be part of it and give us greater understanding of who's there and why they're there and what can we do to make it better for everybody as they enter this community and remain with, we all have to live together.
Community engagement, advice former street nurse Kathy Crow gives as well.
These sites are successful when there's a good community agency management of the site, good PR with the community, good ways that the community can volunteer and help out, whether it's for families or with children.
She also cautions planners to think long term.
When I do speaking engagements across the country, I tell people do not look to Toronto for best practice. It looks to me like Ottawa is choosing kind of the Class A model of these structures, which is good. And I wish we had. I wished we had known at the time these would still be up in 4 or 5 years later, and they're not going anywhere soon. We would have maybe not chosen the congregate model.
Now, again, that's not the model being proposed in Ottawa, but De Silva says the congregate model is working here. So you like the open concept? You don't see it as a negative in any way?
No, not at all. If anything, it promotes community, right? It promotes engagement, it promotes contact. It mitigates safety concerns because our staff are able to see from one end of the building to the other.
Now, one of the first things we noticed when we walked into this building is that it's really nothing like a tent at all, which workers here say is a common misconception about these structures. They also say the ability for sprung structures to be conformed to whichever vulnerable population they're housing is a really strong point in making them the most viable option. Robin Miller, CBC News, Toronto.